Hey, this is Stu Schaefer, and I'm about to explain the 7 foods you don't want to eat if you're trying to lose weight in menopause. And if you're a woman, well, if you're in menopause, you're a woman. First off, let me just explain. I've been working with women for over 24 years, women over 50, helping them lose weight, burn off body fat. And so what I've discovered over the last 2 decades is stuff that you really won't find in textbooks. And I've repeatedly used it with client after client after client. I've tested it, perfected it, and refined it. And I'm going to share 7 foods that I've seen repeatedly prevent women from losing weight. In fact, sometimes cause you to gain weight. This is going to be contrary to what a lot of the textbooks or some of the intellectuals will say. This is the difference between when you've done something and worked with thousands of women and can see it firsthand versus you're just reading something out of a textbook, which the studies don't normally test and look at menopause women anyway, so you guys are always left out. So you're going to want to take some notes here. Now let me show you what can happen, all right? I was working with a client named Katrina. Katrina could not lose weight no matter what. She was already eating healthy, whole food, organic foods, everything like that you would imagine. She wasn't drinking alcohol. She wasn't eating sugar. She seemingly was doing everything perfect. Well, the culprit was she had some of these foods she was eating, and as soon as we cut out these foods, you can see how quickly she lost weight. Now, ironically enough and interestingly, her father had rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia. When she ate a couple of these foods, she did get the same symptoms. She had terrible pain in her joints. She had swelling in her fingers, just like the rheumatoid arthritis. And she wondered, geez, my dad ate all these foods too. Maybe he and I had the same sensitivities, the same problems with these. Boy, and once she cut out these foods, she never had any problems or pain ever again. So the number one most common food that causes problems is tomatoes, okay? Now, there's a couple variations or various reasons for this. One being it's a nightshade, another being some of the phytonutrients that are in there. There could be other reasons, and I'm sure there are, that I don't know about or that scientists don't know about, because quite honestly, we're not that smart. As much as we know, there's way more that we don't know. But tomatoes are often a culprit. This would include things like salsa. This would include things like different tomato sauces and things like sriracha sauce and those types of things. Tomatoes cause problems so often that I recommend when I start with clients, they don't ever eat tomatoes in the beginning. Because a lot of times what will happen is then when they put them back in, they'll see weight gain really quickly, or they'll get inflamed, or they'll have digestion issues, or rashes, or canker sores, or insomnia, headaches, things like that. And it's really crazy how often tomatoes cause problems. So that's the number one food to try avoid it. Cut it out. Test it. Get rid of it. See how that affects you. Now, number 2 is potatoes. All right, well, geez, what's wrong with potatoes? Well, potatoes are also a nightshade, and they're a root vegetable, and sometimes the skin has a lot of natural toxins or pesticides that they use. Even if you get to potatoes that they haven't used pesticides, there's natural toxins that still find their way into the skin, and everyone eats the skin these days because everyone says how healthy it is and it has fiber. Well, so I would avoid potatoes. Well, what could you have instead? Sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are totally different from potatoes. They're not a nightshade. And their profile of vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients are completely different. So you could take out regular potatoes, I'm talking red potatoes, russet potatoes, golden potatoes, the normal potatoes, and replace that with sweet potatoes or yams. That would be a much better replacement, okay? Number 3 is arugula, okay? What? How is this possibly bad? I don't know. I wish I could explain it, but again, time and time again, I'll have a client who's losing weight. We'll see a perfect weight loss, fat loss trend, and then whoop, all of a sudden they'll gain weight or they'll get really bloated. And a lot of times it's because they've added arugula. Now here's what's really funny is I work with a lot of international clients, and clients from Australia don't call it arugula. They call it rocket, okay? And so I remember working with 3 different women, not at the same time, but over a couple months different. And I started seeing rocket. They were showing me what they were eating. They were logged what they eating, and they said rocket, and they had gained weight. And well, I thought rocket might have been some sort of a soda, like a drink or something, like a fizzy sports drink or something like that. And so I asked them, I said, what's rocket? And they said, oh, you guys call it arugula. And I can't tell you how many times over the years someone will buy a spring mix with the kale and arugula and lettuce and spinach or they'll add arugula to a shake and make a part of a vegetable smoothie or something. And I would say 50 to 70% of the time, so call it 2/3, 2 out of 3 people, it will cause them to bloat, gain weight. It causes inflammation in the body. I wish I had a scientific, detailed explanation for this. What I can tell you, though, is we do pretty strict testing with a lot of the clients where they're holding all their variables the same, and we can add this and take it out, and we can see a perfect correlation in terms of bloating, inflammation, and weight gain. Well, if you're eating some of these things and they're causing inflammation right now, that'll prevent you from losing weight. And for some reason, women in menopause, maybe it's because your body's more sensitive. Maybe it's because your hormones are shifting a little bit and your ovaries aren't producing the hormones they used to. Maybe it's because you've developed a gut issue over the years and you're having now some fallout or some symptoms of it. There's a lot of reasons this could be affecting you. But what I know is over 20 years in working with thousands of people, I've witnessed this time and time again. Now, number 4 is hummus. Hummus. Why is this bad? Well, this is chickpeas and oil. So it's a carbohydrate that's been ground up, which turns any complex carbohydrate into a simple carbohydrate. And now you're adding an oil, which is a fat. Now, this fat carbohydrate combo is a very fat gaining type of combination here. So when you're using hummus or putting it on foods or adding it to meals, a lot of times what it'll do is it'll kind of cause this chemical reaction in your body, where now the body will take the fat that's in the hummus combined with those chickpeas, the beans, and it'll send it off to your fat cells. So in other words, hummus is one of those foods that the body can very easily store it as fat, even though it's a healthier food. Well, anytime you grind down a carbohydrate, for example, you take apples, turn them into applesauce. You take pasta, for example. Well, you're taking a complex carb, grinding it into a flour, reconstituting it as pasta. When you do that, it can turn a complex carb, which would normally digest very slowly, and it turns it into a simple carb now, which then can have and cause different reactions in the body with insulin and blood sugar and other hormones and enzymes. Now, when you eat something with it, it can take that and put it into the fat cells where maybe normally it wouldn't if you ate this as a whole food version. So hummus can be real tricky. The other problem with hummus is it's easy to overeat, like nut butters, which we're going to talk about maybe as easy to overeat. And so a lot of times people will have too much, and it's so good. I mean, it goes down so easily, so I understand why. All right, number 5 is cheese. All right, cheese. Now, specifically, any type of cheese that's really processed has color in it. So cheddar cheese, they color that. Things like Mexican cheese blend and Swiss cheese and all these other cheeses. A lot of times they'll have real high fat content, not a lot of other vitamins, minerals, nutrients. And if they're really overly processed, American cheese, this can cause a lot of issues. Now, white mozzarella cheese, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, these types of things, if you can have dairy, some people can't, their bodies don't like it, but if you can, these are much better alternatives. Maybe you love cheese and you're just a cheese fanatic, and the thought of cutting out cheese just depresses you so much you wouldn't do it. There's people like that, I understand. Okay, well, maybe switching over to a white mozzarella cheese rather than, say, a cheddar or an American or a Swiss or Munster or Jack, cheddar Jack, these types of things, would be a better alternative. Or maybe instead using cottage cheese and topping your food with that or mixing it in to get that nice cheese flavor and some consistency. These things might be better. They have a lot more protein and a lot less fat in them, and the processing is a little bit different. They're not colored, a little bit less processing than some of the other cheeses. So that would be an option. Okay, now, number 6 is the sauces, okay? Sauces should be avoided. These would be things like tomato sauce or even things like sauces and dressings, marinades, things like that. The problem with sauces is they're usually going to add a lot of fat and a lot of sugar to them to get the right flavor and consistency. And so you've got to be careful with the sauces. What's better than sauces is herbs and spices. Herbs and spices are more of a food. They have a lot less additives. They're processed minimally. They can really bring out great flavor, but without adding all the junk to it. Even tomato sauce, for example. When they grind down the tomatoes, you're left with a very concentrated form, which has a lot higher levels of sugar. Sometimes they'll add fats to it to get a more creamy consistency. So sauces oftentimes will cause a lot of problems, whereas seasoning and spices won't. But boy, they can sure make those foods taste great. And then last one, number 7, is the oils. People think that oils are healthy, especially olive oil. Well, it's not unhealthy per se. Most oils are not very good for you. Okay, the nut and seed oils are not great. They cause inflammation. They're not a good source of nutrients. They add a lot of unnecessary fats without the nutrient density. And so, yeah, olive oil, avocado oil, those oils aren't necessarily bad. Coconut oil. The problem is people are overusing them because they'll hear they're good for you. So they'll say, great, and they'll just drizzle the olive oil on. Well, okay, that adds a lot of fat, but it's still not giving you a lot of nutrients. And so even though it might not be a harmful fat per se, If you're trying to get fats, the best source of fats is going to be from fish. They have very unique fatty acids that don't often get stored as fat, are anti-inflammatory, and really help with the body, can help with insulin resistance, and can help you burn fat. Oils are not a great source of fats at all. I would not focus your attention on oils. I would try to minimize the use of oils. Now, are you going to be cooking with oil? Sure. But if you can spray it or spritz it, that's much better than drizzling it. You can get a really even, nice even coating on your foods or in a pan, but use a fraction of the amount. So in that case, I would say, if you're cooking with oil, great, but an alternative way to cook things is to steam it. Cook it in a pressure cooker, grill it, and you don't always need to add those oils. Oils are misunderstood because a lot of people say, oh, fats are healthy, olive oil is healthy, so that means I can have as much of it as I want. Well, that's not true. And a lot of times these oils that you're having, by the time you get them, are rancid. They're not even that healthy. They've been overly processed. And so most of the time it actually prevents weight loss. It doesn't help you. And especially if you're a woman in menopause, you need all the help you can get. And these are the 7 foods I would absolutely avoid. Now, we're going to splash a couple videos up here all about different foods, but also little mistakes and little tips and tricks for losing weight in menopause. You want to watch these videos. I'll see you on the next video over there. I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. All right, we'll talk soon. Take care.